Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at an interesting indie called Pinstripe. Now Pinstripe just hit the eShop and it's also on sale, so obviously that was enough motivation for me to try it out. But when I found out that it was produced by a solo dev, I was more than interested. Just by looking at its graphics, we can tell that it was definitely a labor of love, and any small level of investigation either into its description or flashing through its photos, we can tell that it's most likely going to be a puzzle game. However, playing through the entire game from start to finish, it's really difficult not to address it also as a walking sim. And if you're not familiar with the walking sim genre, those are games that are all about just telling a story. Maybe they have slight puzzle elements or slight platforming, but mostly it's the story. And though Pinstripe does have a few subtle platforming elements and a good handful of puzzles, it is most likely going to fall into that genre. If you did read the game's description on the eShop, you'll already know that the main premise is that someone's child was abducted and it's their mission to get them back. But if you didn't actually look at it at the eShop yet, this is also demonstrated in the opening cinematics when you learn the basics of character control. However, it's the in-game experience with the story that lets us know it's not as straightforward as an abduction. Confronted with shadowy figures with even more shadowy pseudonyms and strange technology pushing the plot forward, the player very quickly realizes that this game is dedicated to the conceptual capture of the trauma of the event as opposed to a line-by-line retelling. This is definitely made clear by the surrealistic environments, escaping through mirrors, and the clues that you find throughout the game. As you play, the main character finds evidences of their previous life or whichever situation led up to this eventual abduction. Trinkets such as lockets, bottles, messages, and fragments of notes will help you progress just as much forward in the game as it will help you unveil the true story behind this surrealistic veil. But not to jeopardize too much of the story of the game, as that is the entire point, that's about as much as I'm going to go into for the review. The controls in Pinstripe are incredibly simple. The typical left-hand joystick or left-side directional buttons are used for character control, leaving the right-hand joystick to aim the slingshot. This slingshot, being the only weapon you have access to in the game, is also selected and fired by the RZ button. And LZ is reserved to bring up a menu of all of the items and clues you may have picked up along your way. Moving on to the audio portions of Pinstripe, all of the character dialogue is fully voiced over, making each character interaction somewhat unique. And though many of the character voices were obvious caricatures of personality types, I never really felt that they were abrasive or detracted from gameplay. And as you wander through different environments in the game, the soundtrack keeps pace with exactly how unique an environment is or with its expected emotional content, having rises and falls and crescendos or just generally creepiness when you're wandering through dark caves. All of this combined with the overarching story that you uncover as you play through the game generally makes for a pretty great game. However, it is the puzzle elements of this game that do stand out a bit, and maybe not for the best of reasons. Though Pinstripe is very closely aligned to a walking simulator whose purpose is to tell a story, most of the puzzle elements are skill-based, meaning that you have to do certain things within a certain time frame or do certain things within a very small margin of error. And though not necessarily attempting to categorize an entire genre, most walking simulators or story-based games are more given to logic puzzles. This is because the game already intends to make you think or try and uncover a mystery, so thinking-based or logic puzzles are very well suited. So skill-based puzzles with a very narrow margin for error might not exactly be what the typical consumer would be expecting or find appealing about this type of game. Overall, I'd have to say that Pinstripe, with its 2 to 3 hours of solid gameplay and story, is definitely worth your time if you're already a fan of story-intensive puzzle games or walking simulators. And though it is only about a 2-hour game on its initial playthrough, there is a Game Plus mode. This mode grants you a golden key which allows you access to certain notes and areas that weren't available in the initial playthrough. So any completionist players may get much more than 2 hours out of the game. Well, that about wraps up the review of Pinstripe on the Switch eShop. So if you enjoyed the review or found it helpful, feel free to throw me a like or a comment to show your support. And don't forget to subscribe when you click that little bell icon to stay updated with the latest content. New indies are coming out nearly every day, so there's always going to be something new to find right here. And if you want to support the channel or help me make these review videos, feel free to check out our Patreon. But anyway, this has been Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.